Have you ever wondered how a single city could grow to rule the entire Mediterranean world and then, just as spectacularly, crumble into dust? This is the story of Rome, an epic tale of ambition, power, and eventual collapse that has fascinated humanity for centuries. Our journey begins not with emperors and legions, but with a legend. The story of two brothers, Romulus and Remus, suckled by a she-wolf and destined for greatness. It was Romulus who, in 753 BC, founded a small settlement on the banks of the Tiber River. This humble village on 7 hills was the seed from which a mighty empire would grow. For nearly 500 years, Rome was a republic, governed by senators and the people. It was a time of fierce debate, political maneuvering, and constant warfare. Rome expanded its influence, conquering its neighbors in Italy and then clashing with its great rival, Carthage, in the epic Punic Wars. This was the era of legendary figures like Hannibal and Scipio Africanus, whose battles shaped the future of the Mediterranean. The Republic's legions, disciplined and relentless, became the most formidable fighting force the world had ever seen, securing vast territories for Rome. But with great expansion came great instability. The Republic's system, designed for a city-state, began to buckle under the weight of its own success. The 1st century BC was a time of chaos and civil war. The gap between the rich and the poor widened. Powerful generals commanded armies loyal to them rather than the state, and the political system was paralyzed by corruption and gridlock. Into this turmoil stepped one of history's most charismatic and ambitious figures, Julius Caesar. A brilliant general and a shrewd politician, Caesar conquered Gaul, modern-day France, and returned to Rome a hero. His famous crossing of the Rubicon River with his army was a direct challenge to the Senate's authority, plunging the Republic into another bloody civil war. He emerged victorious, declared himself dictator for life, and initiated sweeping reforms, but his ambition was seen as a threat to the Republic's very soul. In 44 BC, on the Ides of March, he was assassinated by a group of senators, hoping to restore the old ways. Their hopes were in vain. Caesar's death didn't save the Republic. It just triggered another round of civil wars. Out of this chaos rose his adopted son and heir, Octavian. A master strategist and politician, he methodically eliminated his rivals, including the famous duo of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. In 27 BC, the Senate bestowed upon him the title Augustus, meaning the revered one. While he claimed to be restoring the Republic, he had in fact created something entirely new. The Roman Empire. Augustus became the first Roman emperor, ushering in an unprecedented era of peace and prosperity. This period, known as the Pax Romana, or Roman peace, lasted for over 200 years. It was the golden age of the empire. The legions, once instruments of conquest, now became guardians of the frontiers, patrolling a vast territory that stretched from Britain to Mesopotamia, from the Rhine River to the Sahara Desert. Trade flourished along a network of incredible roads, many of which are still visible today. A single currency and a unified legal system made commerce easier and safer than ever before. Ideas, cultures, and religions spread across the empire. Cities like Alexandria, Antioch, and of course, Rome itself became vibrant centers of learning and culture. The Roman Empire, at its zenith, was home to an estimated 50 to 90 million people, perhaps a quarter of the world's total population at the time. This era of peace and stability allowed Roman culture to flourish and leave an indelible mark on the world. Roman engineering was simply legendary. They built magnificent aqueducts that carried fresh water to cities over dozens of miles, a feat of precision that is still astounding. They perfected the use of the arch and concrete to construct massive structures. Think of the Colosseum, a spectacular amphitheater that could hold over 50,000 spectators for gladiatorial games and public spectacles. Or the Pantheon in Rome, with its massive unreinforced concrete dome, still the largest of its kind in the world, almost 2,000 years after it was built. Roman law provided a foundation for many modern legal systems, emphasizing concepts like justice, fairness, and the rights of citizens. And of course, the Latin language became the basis for the Romance languages spoken today, like French, Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese. But no golden age lasts forever. By the 3rd century AD, The cracks in the imperial edifice were beginning to show. The Pax Romana came to a violent end, replaced by what historians call the crisis of the 3rd century. The empire faced a perfect storm of problems. Politically, the succession of emperors became a deadly game. For a period of about 50 years, there were over 20 different emperors, most of whom were generals who seized power with the backing of their armies, only to be assassinated or killed in battle a short time later. This constant civil war drained the treasury and weakened the frontiers. Economically, the empire was in deep trouble. Constant warfare was expensive, and the government resorted to debasing the currency, putting less silver in the coins, which led to runaway inflation. Trade was disrupted, and the once bustling cities began to decline as people fled to the countryside. At the same time, the empire faced increasing pressure from outside. Along the Rhine and Danube rivers, various groups of peoples, who the Romans collectively called barbarians, began to press against the borders. Tribes like the Goths, Vandals, and Franks, sometimes migrating peacefully, sometimes launching devastating raids, put the Roman legions under immense strain. The empire was simply too vast to defend effectively, especially with its internal political and economic weaknesses. Emperors like Diocletian and Constantine tried to enact major reforms. Diocletian famously split the empire into an eastern and a western half in 285 AD, creating a tetrarchy, or rule of 4, to make it more manageable. Constantine moved the capital from Rome to a new city he built, Constantinople, in the wealthier and more stable east. He also became the first Christian emperor, a decision that would profoundly change the future of the empire and the world. These reforms bought the empire some time, but they couldn't stop the inevitable decline of the western half. The 4th and 5th centuries saw a continuous series of crises. The Huns, a nomadic people from Central Asia, swept into Europe, pushing other tribes like the Visigoths into Roman territory. In 410 AD, a shocking event occurred. The city of Rome itself was sacked by the Visigoths under their leader. It was the first time in 800 years that the city had fallen to a foreign enemy. The psychological impact was immense. The sack sent a message across the world that the once invincible empire was now vulnerable. Throughout the 5th century, the Western Roman Empire slowly disintegrated. Provinces were lost, the economy collapsed, and the central government lost control. Roman armies, increasingly made up of barbarian mercenaries, were unable to defend the shrinking borders. The final act came in for 76 AD. The last Western Roman emperor was a young boy ironically named Romulus Augustus. He was deposed not in a grand battle, but almost as an afterthought, by a Germanic chieftain named Odoacer, who became the first king of Italy. There was no great fanfare, no final stand. The Western Roman Empire simply ceased to exist. Its fall wasn't a single event, but a long, slow process of decay. A death by 1,000 cuts caused by political instability, economic crises, overextension, and external pressures. But while the Western Empire fell, the story of Rome wasn't over. The Eastern Roman Empire, with its capital at Constantinople, would survive and thrive for another 1,000 years, becoming known to history as the Byzantine Empire. It carried on the legacy of Rome, preserving its laws, its culture, and its Christian faith until its own fall in 1453. The rise and fall of Rome is more than just a history lesson. It's a timeless story about the cycles of civilization, about how order can emerge from chaos, and how even the mightiest powers can eventually decline. Its legacy is all around us, in our languages, our laws, our architecture, and our political ideas. The story of Rome continues to inspire and to warn us, reminding us of the heights humanity can achieve and the fragility of even the greatest empires. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the epic history of the Roman Empire. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the past. See you next time.